colleague, Keith Durbin, the Director of ITS. Mr. Durbin, will you introduce those with you?
Happy to. Is this on?
You're on.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. To my right, I've got Margaret Keck. She is our Assistant Director over Communication and Infrastructure Services. To my left is Cindy Maddox, who is our Division Manager for Employee and Account Care. And in the peanut gallery, I have our Chief Information Security Officer, Betty Shin, and Assistant Directors Dawn Clark and Andy Glover. I also would be remiss if I didn't thank our Metro 3 staff members who are making us all look good today and by televising this event. Division Manager Mary Newton, who's actually sitting back there, and then Terry Hirsch, who is running the cameras.
The threshold question for you, as it is for everyone, can you operate within the mayor's proposed budget?
Yes, sir.
With that, the floor is yours to talk about the achievements and needs of ITS.
All right. Information Technology Services is a department that exists to support the information technology needs of other Metro departments and agencies. And at some level, we provide support for all of the agencies of the general government and the judicial branch, and also other agencies of Metro, including the Hospital Authority, MNPS, MTA, and NES. We strive to do so in a collaborative environment, working towards solutions that maximize the return on IT investment for our taxpayers. Our primary business model is to provide the common commodity infrastructure and routine IT services so that departments can focus on activities that provide direct impact for their business objectives. So things that we do include managing Metro's wired and wireless data networks, our email, server management, telephones, PC, and desktop support are all things that we do, along with systems that are essential to operation across multiple departments, such as currently the Kiva system, which is the land management and permitting system, our HR and financial systems, which are called EBS, and our Nashville.gov website, among others. A few of our proud accomplishments from the last year include working with the mayor's office to craft his new open data executive order, which was signed just a few weeks ago, and then we also were instrumental in implementing the new open data portal, which you can find at data.nashville.gov if you haven't checked it out already. We also continue to provide IT services, including data and telephone network design and implementation, along with the attendant computing devices for many, many Metro construction projects, including those completed this year, such as Central Police Precinct, Madison Police Precinct, and the upcoming Lentz Health Center, Sevier Park Community Center, and then our new commons in the southeast Davidson County. At the P.E.G studio, where channels 9, 10, and 19 are located, we have overhauled the production system, lighting, and other components of that solution for producing and broadcasting those channels. And finally, on a personal level, I'd like to thank each of you council members and also to all the Metro departments heads and employees who contributed to the last year to the Metro Employee Emergency Support Fund, also called P.E.G, which Rita Roberts-Turner and I founded with the support of Mayor Dean. The fund, I'm happy to announce, went live at the beginning of May, and we've already served our first Metro employee in need. For the coming year, a few major projects that are currently underway include the continuing rollout of Metro-free public Wi-Fi, currently serving 17 sites, which is set to more than double in number of sites when the parks community centers come online within 60 days. The second one is Anytime Access for All, which is the collaborative initiative between MNPS, Connected Tennessee, Metro government, and private industry, which is aimed at addressing the need of our over 40% of MNPS school students who don't have internet access at home. This year will solidify plans to address those needs and build on the momentum we gained at our truly inspiring community meeting held last week. And I want to point out many thanks goes to Councilman Matthews and Davis for being panelists during one of the sessions, and to Council Lady Gilmore for attending the session last week. Other projects include continuing construction projects such as Bellevue Library, Midtown Hills Police Precinct, again, Sevier Park and Lentz, and then several fire hall renovations. Ongoing, we have the wholesale replacement of Metro's network backbone, which will enable us to better manage the ever-growing flow of network data between Metro's many locations. I'd be remiss if, since Department Head Terry Cobb is sitting right back there, that we didn't mention that we are working with Metro Codes to replace Metro's Kiva land management and permitting application, which is due, project on time and on budget, due to go live in January of next year. We're also implementing a number of employee-focused projects, including a time and attendance system that will cover multiple departments, benefits open enrollment, employee self-service for the HR department to benefit Metro employees, and reduce costs for paper processes. And finally, I'm happy to let you know once again that in addition to being on Comcast and streaming on Nashville.gov, AT&T now serves our public education and government TV channels, including Metro 3, by streaming them live on the UVerse service. All you need to do, go to channel 99 on your UVerse box, and then scroll to P.E.G channels, and then we're listed with other community P.E.G channels. Kind of one final thought, and though it's not my budget per se, I'd also ask that you ask and recommend that you fund the mayor's suggested $50,000 one-time appropriation for the Nashville Education, Community, and Arts Television, or NECAT, the Metro-authorized nonprofit that runs channels 9, 10, and 19 at the P.E.G studio. Due to changes in Metro's new Comcast cable franchise, they, for the first time in years, have not received $100,000 in support that they've received under the past franchise, which their business model was built basically around the receipt of that $100,000, which is not an insubstantial amount of money to a small nonprofit. The organization has a new, energetic executive director in Trish Christ and new board chair in Joel Sullivan, and have a pipeline of contributions and creative engagement with the community that is beginning to bear fruit. They strongly feel that this appropriation will take them through this transition and enable them to further transform these channels into true community assets, and I agree with them. To wrap up, therefore, I'd ask that you support the mayor's proposed budget for ITS, as it will enable us to continue to support Metro departments and agencies per our mission.
Thank you. And just for clarity purposes for members of the committee, the $50,000 you referenced is in this budget. You are asking us to support it. It's not an addition or a change.
That is correct.
Right.
It is in this budget. It is not in my budget.
Right.
However, I'm actually not quite sure where it is.
It's okay. You can have an opinion on other things.
Thank you.
Okay. One clarifying question. In your response to us, you talk about a budget reduction of $806,000. That's largely reflected in your change in what management services fees or whatever we call them, is it not? All internal service fees, is it not?
The reduction? No, I think the number in internal, make sure I understand your question.
My question is, what is the $806,000 reflected from?
There are a number of cuts for contracts that we are no longer in need of, and other types of cuts. There is about $292,000 of that 800 that is directly reflective of the change through general services away from internal service model. ITS is not changing from an internal service model ourselves.
Okay. Councilwoman Berry.
Thank you, Chair, and it's great to see you. Thank you for being here. I have one quick question. We've talked about this a little bit through some of the other budget hearings. I noticed that you have vacancies in your organization, I think it looks like there's 20 vacancies. Are those real vacancies that you're having a hard time to fill, is my first question.
So they are real vacancies, and we have a devil of a time filling them. I think Nashville Technology Council does either a quarterly or semi-annual tally of open IT positions in Middle Tennessee, and the last number that came out a month or so ago is there are over 800 open positions available. It's very hard to find people. What we're doing is Cindy was brought on a year ago as our full-time HR person to focus on that in addition to the central HR department, but there are real positions, and what we are doing in some cases is we're using salary savings from those to bring in people to fill in short-term needs.
And one of the things that we've recently heard from is the salary studies that have been done metro-wide, and I think one of the conversations that is being had is how much of the salary is the attraction versus the benefits. You've got potentially employees who aren't looking at that benefit package as very attractive because they don't intend to be here for 10 years. Are you finding that in the IT world? Is it the salary that seems to be the stumbling block or in hiring, or is it just the lack of skills?
It's both. It's all of the above. There's certainly a lack of skills in the community, and so I'm actually on a governor's panel to try to address the workforce shortage in IT. The pay is definitely an issue. I think of our 50-some-odd job classes, we had 9 that were analyzed through the salary survey, 3 of which actually hit that 20% under market.
Okay.
Basically, my entire leadership staff falls into that. And so that is certainly something that is an active issue that we deal with on a daily basis, as does the state, and HCA, for instance, last I heard last week, has 200 open positions.
So we're not unique then?
We are not unique.
Okay.
We are on the same pain point together.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, Keith, for being here. First, I just want to say, wow, really great report and a lot of really good stuff. Learned a couple things in that report. Didn't even know about UVerse yet, which is great. So our Channel 3 stuff can now be on AT&T. Kiva being redone, I think, will be really useful for our departments as well. And then the expansion of Metro Wi-Fi is really, really awesome to hear. Thank you also for inviting us to the Anytime Access for All Summit. Learned a lot there, and hopefully we shed some light on some things and are getting some plans together to continue to roll out that program. Had a couple things. I guess talk about open data a little bit. I know I have stuff to learn on that as well, and I'm sure that people would love to hear just a few more thoughts about the mayor's open data plan and where we are on that.
Sure. Open data is not a new concept nationwide. It's a new concept for Metro, so it can be a little scary. Basically, it is a change in philosophy from, it's government data and we want to keep it internal. Rather, the philosophy shift is, as we think through processes and systems, the thought becomes, all right, so what of this data meets a couple of criteria? Is it structured in a format that's basically similar to a database or tabular format? Is it legal for us to put it out? Does it put people at risk if we were to put it out? Does it violate any laws or regulation if we put it out? So there is a set of criteria that have been established via the executive order that as we think through systems and data that exist within departments and agencies, we want to look to see how we can push that out to make government more accessible and to provide opportunities, both economic and for entrepreneurs to use the data to provide services that couldn't necessarily be provided by Metro government with the staffing and funding that we see across the board. Other cities have seen great success with these things, and one of the poster child applications of this is in Albuquerque a couple of years ago. Their transportation authority put out GPS locations of buses real time. The university there took that application without any cost to the government, put together a little app. This is basically Find My Bus. So you're standing at the bus stop, you're like, it's raining, you don't know when your bus is, you get it right there on your cell phone. And they estimate, when talking to their staffs, that they've saved $500,000 in call center and other attendant costs from those types of things. Now, did they go into that initiative thinking that would be there? No, probably not, but it is one of the success stories in this initiative. What we've done thus far is we have signed the executive order. We have, per the mayor's request, pulled together kind of low-hanging fruit by putting out word to departments saying, hey, what do you have that fits this criteria that we could put out there quickly? Mm-hmm. That's out there, 20-something data sets. Over the coming months, departments will assign a data coordinator. They will work with their department heads who have the ultimate authority to suggest data sets that will be reviewed. Nothing goes out without a review from the Mayor's Office of Innovation and ITS, and we'll continue to put those out over the coming years and see what comes of it.
So we learned of one other Office of Innovation partnership. We were asking them yesterday some of the things they were doing. Yeah, that sounds great. I wasn't sure if there was a need for, cost for us to do any software or anything just to get the data set going, but we can just basically put it out there, and then also the private market can begin to do things with the data. Like you said, Albuquerque did some kind of an app based on our data that already exists.
Yes, there was a cost for the Socrata software that we're using. I think it was $53,000 for the first year. Okay. So there was definitely cost, and frankly, over time, there may be costs built in from staff time extracting data, or actually in a best case scenario, you actually code your system so it's creating a feed of information. For example, again, Department Head Cobb sitting back there, one high value, actually our most accessed data set thus far is permits, building permits. And we have set that up so that is a live stream. So if you go out there, actually it's a daily stream. So if you go out there, you will see the permits that have been created up to the end of the day, the prior day, which you would think would have some value to people in the community.
Very helpful. Finally, I appreciate all the departments that have, of course, we've put a call to action on getting fiber in Nashville, whether that's Google, now AT&T is interested in that. I was just kind of thinking ahead, once, let's say, a year from now, Nashville's got a fiber network, basically, will we be looking, and of course, not picking any provider or anything, would we be looking to put Metro on fiber speed, just so all of our, I think our government would need to be on a high speed, taking advantage of the highest level technology that's out there. Would we begin to, hopefully all the major providers are on, some sort of gigabit speed at that point. Would we be going to fiber speed?
I can't disagree with you at all. However, understand those speeds are available today from AT&T and other providers that we have, if you want to pay for them. And these other programs that you're talking about, Google and AT&T, are aimed squarely at the residential market. We are constantly, and it's in Margaret's purview, constantly looking at options and capabilities there, because you're right. It would be great to have that level of speed at each of our golf courses and other places. So we will
planning department, files. I'm just thinking, yeah, absolutely. And, I assume it would have to roll to business and government. I just think there's going to be a point, though, where we don't want to get behind. Obviously, everybody's getting there and looking for gig speed at an affordable price, though, of course.
So part of our network backbone program is actually providing basically the ability for that level of speed at major locations throughout the government. So we are getting there, whether it's with these external providers or internally using the resources we have. But you're dead set on. The need for streaming and so what I'm hearing is Margaret had a comment that she wanted to make about the speeds that are available. So what I'm seeing is our new pipe.
What we have now is
That
3
microphone
gigabytes.
right in front of you would work. Straight ahead.
What we have at major locations now, such as this site, we have about 3 gig available. We have between 1 and 3, kind of depending on some of the technology in it, through the big buildings and through large sites. And the upgrade that we're doing would give us 10 gigabits. So
Great.
We're dealing
Of bandwidth, I guess.
yes.
A bandwidth.
Okay.
So we're dealing with hundreds of people at a lot of these sites. So we're talking that's 10 times what they're offering to the home.
I will quit being a nerd with Keith and let others ask questions, but I appreciate you and I appreciate your leadership in the community on IT and your services. Thank you.
Thank you.
The nerd comment is too easy, so I'll just let it go. Councilwoman Langster, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Keith, again.
Likewise.
Hope you're doing well. Your HR person, I hope she has taken the time to advertise for and recruit in the minority papers. If you haven't, I wish you would. The Tennessee Tribune and the Nashville Pride. Are you currently advertising in there? I can't hear you.
Everything I put through for advertising goes through regular HR, so I have to go through them to put out any kind of advertisement we have.
So could you, that would help a lot
I
in
can make a suggestion to
attracting.
them, ask them how we can do that the best way.
Okay, that would help you recruit
Absolutely.
more minorities. Thank you.
It's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Councilman Claiborne.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. And I know that IT is busy because over the last few months, almost every department that I've been in or talked to anyone at length, they've said, we've got something new that IT is doing for us, or IT is getting ready to get us to a certain point or whatever. So I know that you have a lot of initiatives, and that's a good thing. One of the only question I wanted to ask, last year when you were here, we had a significant discussion with you about possibilities of working with the Board of Education, and when the board came, we had the same kind of conversation with them. So just as kind of a follow-up to that, in the last year, have there been any conversations between IT and the school board? And if so, has it been meaningful, productive, or are we just basically at the same place we were last year?
We actually have been doing quite a few collaborative projects with them. The financial systems that I mentioned earlier, the EBS upgrade that happened this past weekend, they were a part of. The employee self-service, they are a part of. The Kronos time and attendance system, they are a major part of. So we have been working actually very closely and very collaboratively with them in a number of initiatives. I actually sent them an email this morning and got a very positive response on putting these types of robot cameras, for lack of a better word, in Bransford, in that, where the school board meets, because we have to drag all these cameras out at this point, and they received that very well. We've been talking about it, so there are certainly opportunities that we have taken advantage of. There are potentially more out there, and we will continue those discussions.
Good, thank you. Councilman Pridemore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. Speaking of cameras, you brought to my attention, is there anything in your department that is in the process of replacing cameras used in public areas such as parks? And I say that because in my communication with parks over the weekend, apparently there was some couple of thefts in one of our parks, and I discovered that very few of all of the cameras in the metro system work. So is there anything in your goals or the budget next year to replace those, to at least get them up and running?
So I appreciate the question. So over the past 2 years, we have actually established a service line around video cameras. We worked, it was directed and kicked off by the needs of the police department to replace the aged out camera infrastructure that they have downtown. And so we led an initiative whereby Metro Standards, and if you've heard me talk before, you know all about standardizing systems and processes and hardware where it makes sense. So we worked and led an initiative that standardized cameras, a standardized camera system that we are pushing out and we are recommending as departments and agencies express interest, they're coming into this system, which I assure you does work. What we are finding and have found, however, there are departments and agencies that had existing camera infrastructures that may not have been planned or set up with as much care and precision as we would like. And so we are working with those departments and agencies to help bring them toward the standards, which also include interoperability capabilities, such that rather than Department A having this standalone system over there, and if there is a crime, the police needs to requisition a DVD of that film, the police it's actually set up that the police, with the proper MOUs, can actually dip into that system and take that information and see that information for themselves. Parks is one of those departments that we have been in discussions with and working with to upgrade their level of cameras.
Okay, I understand that was a problem 3 years ago when I first came in office, and I'm curious now, how much closer are we to getting there, to where past the investigative stage and into the implementing stage?
We're not in an investigative stage. We have the cameras and the system implemented. We are, again, working with Parks toward transitioning cameras. I mean, we're in the process.
So within the next year, you would say?
I would hope so, assuming that Mr. Lynch and his staff are amenable. I'd say that's probably feasible. I don't know the definition of a project plan, but I can certainly get back with you on that. Talk to Tommy and get with you there.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Keith, that was a great, or should I call you Mr. Durbin? That was a great presentation. Great presentation. It was very informative. My question kind of built on Councilman Claiborne's. I wanted to know, in terms of the data sharing, how much of the data are we sharing with Metro Public Schools and the students? Can the people access? That's my first question.
I don't know specifically any data that we are sharing directly with MNPS, other than with the collaborative engagement that we've been working on for the last 5 years around the Nashville After School Zone Alliance, where my department developed the application that the after-school providers use to take roll and other information that is then fed over into their student management system. Otherwise, I am aware that the health department and the schools, they work very closely together. I know they are sharing data, but otherwise, and then obviously the HR system and the financial systems are joined in some respects.
Because I know they have a data warehouse, and it'd be really great if we could get them, I know it's some legal things with that, but if we could get them to release that information, I think it would be really helpful in terms of grants and planning as we deal with children in the community, if we could help them see that. So I don't know how you do that. And the second piece I wanted to talk to you about is, how do people obtain franchises? Is it just with AT&T and Comcast, or can anyone do that?
So all the franchises we have, the telecommunications franchise, are non-exclusive. So anybody that wants to come in with the pockets that are deep enough to support and to build or lease an infrastructure can do so. They can either go the state route, which the Tennessee Regulatory Authority, TRA, grants those statewide franchises, and then if they wanted a unique local franchise with Metro, they would just contact me or the mayor's office and legal, and we would work toward developing something unique. Comcast went the unique route, whereas AT&T kind of pioneered the state franchise, which, from my recollection, there have been at least 2 or 3 new statewide franchises granted since the last 4 or 5 years. And my understanding is that's what Google, should we get that bid, Google intends to go the statewide franchise route.
Okay, thank you so much. And then in terms of hardware, are there other opportunities for us to work with other companies aside from Dell, or where are we with that?
Absolutely. So we work with an open competitive RFP, request for procurement process. We actually just closed and finished a tablet RFP, and we have Panasonic, Dell, and then at least one other brand tablets that are available on that. The Dell is not only servers, but it's also laptops and desktops. And the next time those come up, anybody who's interested to bid can bid.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Durbin, thank you very much. Thank you all for your good work. Mr. Cobb.